Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a regular listener to this show, you will know that I'm not a big fan of text polls, simply because they can't and don't give us a truly accurate insight into how people really feel about certain issues at a particular point in time. So that's why I use them sparingly, the text polls, that is. And usually I run the text polls without any prior notice. That way I feel it's more difficult for the final result to be compromised by those who are on either side of the debate. So, the ringing of the Angelus bell, not only on RTE television, but also on national and local radio, is back in the news again. This has come about because last week the Angelus bell wasn't rung at 6 p.m. on RTE television because the station decided not to interrupt its coverage of, yes, you've guessed it, the Biden visit. But it is my understanding that RTE received very few complaints from the public for not ringing the bell. But some papers have picked up on this story, and many are once again asking if it's time to stop this practice of ringing the Angelus bell once and for all, especially now when the country, or more so its citizens, practice a multitude of different religions, and then there are many who have no link to any denomination, and therefore they are surely entitled to question why some media outlets are leaning more towards the Christian tradition when ringing the Angelus bell. So today, on the show, for our text poll, our WhatsApp poll, the question is very simple. Are you ready? Should the Angelus bell continue to be rung on local and national media outlets? If you think the answer to that question is yes, text the letter Y to 087 1200 900. Or if you think the answer to that question is no, text the letter N for no, to 087 1200 900. You can do this through text or WhatsApp. And just to remind you now, this is important, we will leave those lines open for 15 minutes only. And I promise you we'll give you the result at the end of the show. Let's debate this now with two guests who we have invited onto the show. We go to Monaghan first, where John Hamill is standing by. John is well known for his work with Atheist Ireland, and I can almost guess, John, where you're coming from this one. Yay or nay?
Well, good morning, Joe. It's good to talk with you again. And I think actually there's a different dynamic with respect to local radio as compared to RTE.
How do you mean?
So, well, RTE is the national broadcaster, and we're all supposed to pay a TV licence to fund RTE. I think a local station like Shannonside or Northern Sound is privately held, and as I understand it, part owned by the church, and it's perfectly fine for the Catholic Church.
No longer partly owned by the church. But go on.
Well, I understood it's owned by Radio Kerry Holdings, and Radio Kerry Holdings is part owned by the church.
All right. Well, then you know more about it than I do. But anyway, but let me just say, I know at board level there is an involvement by the church. And by the way, I welcome that, and we welcome that, even though I'm no longer in any way corporately involved at that level. But go on anyway. Make your point.
Yes, I agree, Joe. It's perfectly fine for the church to own radio stations and broadcast Catholic prayers if they want to have a Catholic station for Catholic people. Now, if I was running it, if I owned the radio station, I think I would have a view that I think RTE should also have, which is that the broadcast should be for those of all faiths and none. So my own preference would be to be inclusive in that way, although, as I say, I don't think there's anything wrong with the church owning radio stations and broadcasting Catholic prayers for Catholic people.
So now I'll get back to that in a moment, because I just want to give clarification in relation to Shannonside, Northern Sound and our policy. But let me just say, it is a call to prayer, but in recent years, the Angelus, John, has it not become more of a call for reflection? It no longer resembles, at least on the telly, it no longer resembles a Christian call to prayer.
It does indeed. As you say, the Angelus bells are sounded. The Angelus is explicitly a call to Roman Catholic prayer. I don't know if you've ever asked a Presbyterian what they think of the Angelus, Joe. I have.
Well, I'm doing it this morning. If you're of the Presbyterian faith, if you're of the Church of Ireland faith, or if you're of any faith or denomination, that's what this discussion, this debate is all about. We want you to express your view one way or the other through 087 1200 900. But go on anyway, John.
Yeah, I think it's. I can give you a couple of sentences if you're interested of what Presbyterians think. And as an atheist, I don't feel that I'm included by a call to Roman Catholic prayer. I mean, the angel of the Lord declared unto Mary, and she conceived of the Holy Spirit. We're asked to recite this story about an angel who appeared to a young girl thousands of years ago to tell her she's going to be made pregnant by a spirit. And we're all supposed to get super interested in this creepy idea about whether she's a virgin or not. And the whole thing's utterly absurd, Joe.
But there are those, in fairness, and you're entitled to your point of view, and that's why I invited you on. But there are many who are listening this morning who believe in that, and that should be respected. And I put it to you that in this country of ours, it has become more of a tradition, if nothing else. In other words, what harm is it doing, John?
Well, I agree. The people who do believe those ideas are perfectly entitled to do so. They're entitled to pray the Angelus every day. I don't think anyone is suggesting that they should be stopped from playing the Angelus every day. The only question is, if you have a national broadcaster or a local broadcaster, do you want to have broadcasts that are inclusive of everyone, or do you want to take a sectarian approach and say, well, let's just broadcast prayers for one sect and denomination that's exclusive of everyone else?
All right, stay where you are. Sean Wynne is also with me. I invited Sean onto the show over the weekend, just to be clear about that. Sean, I suppose the point John is making, and many others would agree with him, is that if it is to be continued, this practice of ringing the bell, it needs to be more inclusive in its content, and that will be difficult because just by ringing the bell, you're offending or you're marginalising many who are now citizens of this country.
Good morning, Joe. First of all, is that a man called Roger Childs in November on the Joe Darcy show, he's the actual head of programming in RTE, said that there was a 2/3 did a survey and 2/3 wanted to keep the Angelus. Mm-hmm. And as John outlined there, the basis, there's no point in repeating it, that it is a call of a religious community to prayer.
Right.
And hopefully, if there was no God, there'd be no atheists. So with God's help, John, in sometime in the future, with God's help, may see that there is a basis to all.
But it is positively but the point is, Sean, is it not positively discriminating in favour of those who are of the Christian faith? We're supposed to be living in a pluralistic society now, are we not?
Well, you see, I doubt if you give me the time to explain that we're in the throes of corporate Marxism, where Marxism destroy the family, destroy religion, destroy private property, destroy any form of national views in relation to the state.
But so I'm giving you the opportunity to air those views, but I don't want to go down the Marxist route. What I want you to do is to stick to the point here. The point is very simple. We are now a pluralist state, a pluralist society, and John's point is the national broadcaster should reflect that in its policy.
But who said that? Who is actually saying that? The voting of the people doesn't necessarily support that position. And I'd be shocked if there's not a considerable view when that poll that you introduced at the start of the programme doesn't show 60-70% of your listenership wanting it retained on Shannonside. And it would be the same, except it has changed since 2018 when that survey was done by RTE. I mean, I did put in a complaint about RTE back in 2020 when they had puppets on the show, like what you said there about the actual content of the Angel itself for 1 minute. It was being been downgraded, and it's the theory of the frog, putting the boiling frog into putting a frog into boiling water to jump out of it if you gradually heat it up. The problem in this country is too many people talking about pluralism and talking about integration and whatever. Theoretically, anyway, in the CSO, the percentage of the population is still considerably high, as saying they're Catholics. Now,
but that doesn't necessarily. No, because I have to come in, because I have to try and keep this as fair and as balanced as I can, Sean. At the end of the day, it is an no. I'm only here to express the facts. I'm not going to express my own personal opinion, not yet anyway. But what I'm saying is that the absolute fact is that this country is not an exclusively Christian country.
Well, you see, that's where our church leaders, our bishops and the bishops' conference remains silent for most of the important issues, and it's left to the lay people and all.
But the church interfered for too long, did it not? I mean,
well, if you look at the reverse of it, the most aggressive people, say in Dáil Éireann, are all fully left-wing socialists that aggressively despise even the prayers in the church.
Now we're going down a different route.
They're on their Brunrup na Héireann about the call to prayer. So you're right, Joe.
But is a Christian prayer? Is a Christian prayer?
Away from them.
Is a call to prayer exclusively Christian? But John, he does have a point. I want to make a statement here, but if I do, I'm afraid it will probably impact the outcome of our text poll, so I'm not going to make that statement. But what I do want to say to you is that I was central to a decision that was taken 30-odd years ago when this radio station was set up, that it is important that where possible we ring the Angelus bell, not because we were trying to curry favour from those who are listening to us. It's because it was expected of us, let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And there are those who will say that even now, in an ever-changing world, here in the Shannonside, Northern Sound region, rural Ireland, Cavan, Monaghan, Longford, Roscommon, Leitrim, Westmeath, the vast majority in those counties would still want us and want RTE to continue the practice.
Yes. I think that's probably likely. Joe, I would accept Sean's figures. I think he said 60 or 70% would be in favour. I think in this census, it's 70-something% of the country is Roman Catholic. And I guess there's just two different ways to view how to run the country or how to run our society in the face of those figures. And one is to take an approach based on sectarian headcount, where we look at which denomination is most populous and then run everything in favour of that denomination.
I don't know about that, but anyway, you've said it now. I don't know if I can agree with you on that. But what you're doing.
Well, sorry, Joe. That's what's happening. What's happening is we have this argument that Sean has very clearly made, and I agree with his figures. The majority of the population is Roman Catholic. We have radio stations which are broadcasting calls to Roman Catholic prayer, and the justification for that is the sectarian majoritarianism. Now, my preference would be, I mean, I'm an atheist. I wouldn't, if I owned a radio station, I wouldn't broadcast atheist messages. I would seek to broadcast material that equally respects those of all faiths and none. Okay. And I would remind your listeners that this kind of approach that's saying, well, here's the majority community, let's do things the way the majority want. We tried that a couple of miles up the road 50 years ago.
Please don't make that link. Please don't make that link. I don't know if that's helpful in relation to this particular debate. Sean, final word to you. John, I'm out of time. I'm out of time.
To what John has
Sorry,
said,
yes, Sean.
But it's a very important point, is that when RTE decided a number of years ago to get rid of the Angelus, there was the other churches including Church of Ireland, the Presbyterian Church, and I'm sure some listeners will ring in and clarify it, is that they said anytime people reflect, it is important that the minute of reflection, regardless of what your religion or no religion, but in the case of it, it needs a wider debate at another date when the country is on free fall. The amount of programs that you'd have ran in relation to anxiety, depression, children, that what's being taught in schools is disgraceful. That's my own personal view.
Right,
but
and now you're going off. You're going off script again.
Being led completely.
All right, I have to leave it at that. And just to say to people, I just want to make it very, very clear that in relation to Shannonside Northern Sound ringing the bell, as we do, ringing the Angelus bell Monday to Friday at 12 midday, and I am no longer part of the management team here, so therefore I'm no longer privy to the official policy, but I can guess, and I'm very confident in saying that it is continuing what has been a long-held tradition in this region for many, many years through local independent radio. It's continuing the tradition of ringing the bell. And that tradition, I can, from my own experience in the early days of Shannonside Northern Sound, there was never a demand. I was never asked. I was never ordered by members of the Catholic Church who sat on our board to ring the bell. It was a conscious, well thought out, I suppose, policy on the part of management to reflect the traditions and the customs of the region that we broadcast to, and nothing more than that.